hockey family? Welcome to Trapped Under Ice, episode 7. So, in previous videos, I made comments that I was going to hit on a pretty hot button topic and really dive into something that was happening currently in the hockey world and something that I really am passionate about. But before we get into all that, remember, like and subscribe, support the channel, and that way I can keep this up. But anyways, so I mentioned bullying in a past video, and this can be a number of different areas: bullying in hockey, in sport, in school, in life, whether it's regular bullying, if you want to call it that, or maybe cyberbullying online through social media or other means. And I totally intend on touching on those subjects a little later on down the road. This one, and for those Oilers fans out there, you may notice the shirt that I'm wearing. This shirt is produced by Oilers Nation, who obviously I am a fan of and a member of. They produced this shirt for Ethan Bear. And if you don't know who he is, he's a young Indigenous player who plays for the Edmonton Oilers and put in a massive amount of ice time this year when a number of their top liners like Oscar Klefbom was out for the season. Ethan stepped up for the Oilers defensive core and did a fantastic job for a kid his age. It was amazing to see. So we all know the Oilers fell short, right? And don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. The Oilers fell short in the playoffs. Got swept out by the Winnipeg Jets, right? They had a lot of injuries. The main lines weren't firing, blah, 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 right? It was bad, right? I was really hoping to see them go the distance. But after they got swept, not only, and I'm be the first to admit this, Oilers fans are terrible. We are. Like, we'll jump on the players or the management or whoever right away when our team isn't doing well. So we're no different than Toronto fans. Once they lost out, they wanted to basically rip apart the team and start from scratch, things like that. So, but the problem was Ethan Bear, as an Indigenous player, came under fire with horrible amounts of online racism and rhetoric from people that was disgusting. And it was absolutely mind-numbing to read these things, that what people were saying. And these are supposed fans of the team tearing down one of our own players in a racist manner because he's Indigenous. Like, this was sick, and it absolutely disgusted me. Thank heavens, like, not only did the Oilers organization step up and release press releases, and the coach stepped up, and the GM stepped up, but Ethan Bear himself stood up and said, I'm going to use my platform to combat this. I'm not going to take this lying down. I'm not going to shrink away from it. I'm actually going to step up and say something. And you can read this whole thing online yourselves. They're doing great work within their community. Oilers Nation, a major portion of the proceeds from these shirts for Ethan Bear actually go to Indigenous sports in Alberta. So the reason I bring this up is if people are so bold and so twisted that they have no problem coming, like, attacking somebody using racist rhetoric to an Indigenous player at the professional level, don't think for a second it's not happening in your organizations. Now, this is the caveat. This is the overarching theme of this, and it is racism in hockey. I truly feel that if you feel that racism doesn't happen in your organization, you've had your head under a rock for a while. Unfortunately, racism in hockey has been there the entire time, and it's still there today. And I don't care what organization it is, it's there. And And I'm going to read something to you guys from Hockey Canada. And this is a statement. And this is going to go into something a little bit in a bit, but I'll read it verbatim and I'll put it on the screen. June 1st, 2020. The following is a statement on behalf of Hockey Canada from Tom Rainey, Chief Executive Officer, and Scott Smith, President and Chief Operating Officer. Recent events have amplified the inequality that exists among us, and now is the time to use the Hockey Canada platform to encourage discussion and change. We know racism exists in the world. It is far too common here in Canada, and the people of color experience racism daily. Unfortunately, racism and inequality have occurred in the hockey community. We recognize that and understand that our organization needs to do more to combat acts of injustice and ensure a safe space for everyone. Hockey Canada and its 13 members will continue to listen and learn, have difficult conversations about our own shortcomings, and open to change if we are going to make progress towards a better future for all participants. It is easy to talk about being inclusive, welcoming, and safe, but now is the time to listen and support those facing racism. We need to do better, be leaders in equality, and be part of the solution. So, that's Hockey Canada's statement in regards to racism. And it's great to hear. It's great that they put out this press release and that they put this out there. The problem is, these are just words until it's put into action. And personally, and I've seen this from the time when I was a kid all the way through my hockey career and even today. So let's wind the clock back quite a ways. And when I was in, I believe it was Adam. My dad coached our Metro team, our house team, right? So in Adam, my first year, my dad decided to coach. And so he stepped behind the bench. Prior to the season starting off, there was a general meeting of all the coaches for the Metro teams as they were dividing up all the players. And my father didn't tell me this right away. He told me the story a number of years later. That as he sat in that room with the 5 other coaches, they were arguing over who was going to take the kids from the Indigenous Reserve Member 2, which was very close to where I lived. I basically lived right on the edge of the reserve. I went to elementary school with these kids. I went to junior high and high school. Like, I knew them. They were my friends. I knew them all. And there was an argument over who had to take them. Of who was going to get punished by taking these Indigenous kids from the Indigenous Reserve onto their team. And my kudos to my dad, because he basically stood up to everybody there and said, you know what, I'll take them. They're just players. They're just kids. And he couldn't understand why this was a big deal. Well, to be honest, he understood it. These guys didn't want Indigenous players on their team because they didn't want their kids playing with Indigenous players. It was that cut and dry and that simple. But my dad didn't care. My dad was happy to take them. He's like, I'll take all of them. So I grew up in an area of Sydney, Nova Scotia called the Shipyard. The Shipyard is right next to the Aboriginal Reserve. And it kind of has a history of being the rough part of town. And it was a bit. But my elementary school was pretty rough and tumble, junior high, high school. It's pretty much the way it goes. But all of these kids were my friends. I grew up with them. So when I stepped in the dressing room and I saw them, it was great. So Evan Laporte, Noah Laporte, Craig Christmas, these are the guys that I'd play road hockey with. So it was no big deal to me. But it was a big deal to them. right? And I didn't understand it right away. I was just a kid. But my father took these players on, and we ended up actually winning the final tournament of the year, which was hilarious. But the biggest part was, and something that absolutely blew my mind, was these coaches, these parents, wanted nothing to do with the Indigenous kids so much that they didn't even want them on their team because they didn't want their kids in the same dressing room as them. Okay. This was quite a long time ago. Unfortunately, things haven't changed. So, kudos to my father for being a stand-up man and taking on these kids and giving them that chance to play and really teaching them and coaching them and treating them like he would treat anybody else. Right? No one got special treatment on that team. I was his son. I probably skated more laps than anybody. But he treated them with respect and treated them as hockey players. Whether they were white or Indigenous or black, it didn't matter. He treated them as hockey players. And it was great for them. We built a lot of great friendships. So roll the clock back to present day. And I sit in general meetings for the coaches in organizations, and I hear it even to this day. And it's terrible. Right? Like, it's so ridiculous at this stage of the game that we as adults and coaches that are supposed to be grooming these kids to get them ready for the next level of hockey are taking our racist prejudices and placing them on a child. So again, it was great words coming from Hockey Canada, but at the same time, if the organizations aren't living up to that and policing this and making sure that every kid gets a fair shake, then they are just words. They mean nothing. So I understand that over the last little while, the sheer amount of racism that has been present in the world is baffling. It is 2021 and we're still doing this. We're still fighting these fights. So I speak to all the coaches out there. You as a coach, when you decided you wanted to be a coach, you made a choice. You made the choice to improve kids at hockey and at life for that matter, to teach them the lessons that they need to grow as a hockey player and as a person. I don't see anywhere in the coaching guidelines that say we do that for white kids only. Our job as coaches is to improve the performance and skill levels of all kids that are enrolled in minor hockey. That is our job. We signed up for this. We didn't sign up to pick and choose. We didn't sign up for any of that. We signed up to improve kids in hockey and improve their life skills as well. That's our job. And I don't know any other way to say this. I can't find a way to kind of like make this sound good or make it sound pretty or try to give you some motivational speech. It's just that simple, that cut and dry. Racism exists in hockey. It exists in every single organization across this country. I guarantee it. And the parents can do their part by not being like that and not being like prejudice against a certain group of people and saying, well, I don't want them playing with my child. Well, then maybe your child shouldn't play. Because you're teaching your child the exact same things that you believe. Right? I wouldn't want that in my dressing room. Not a chance. Again, I go back to the contract that we had our kids sign. Bullying, online or in person, didn't matter. Racism, sexism, any of these things. We had females on our team, right? If any of the boys made a comment that was a sexist comment, like girls shouldn't be here, guess what? Your ass is sitting for the next 2 games. That simple. At the same time, the girls were held to the same level of expectation as the boys. All right. If you choose to teach your children to be racist, and I truly believe it's a choice, and it's a taught reaction, it's not something we're born with. If you choose to teach them this and then expect them to be accepted as part of an organization that is trying to be inclusive of all people, give your head a shake. You obviously have this backwards. You don't understand what sport is about. So the next step beyond the parents is the coaches. I've already said my piece on the coaches, guys. It's our job. We didn't sign up just to coach white kids. We signed up to coach minor hockey. Whether it's male or female, indigenous, black, white, transgender, it doesn't matter. Like, bi, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. That is our job. That's what we signed up for, and that's what we committed to. We made a promise. And it's our responsibility to live up to that. The next step is the organization. The organization needs to police this. There has to be a line drawn in the sand stating that racism will not be tolerated on any level. And not just a slap on the wrist. No, it will not be tolerated. A kid makes racist comments, they maybe get 1 or 2 strikes and they're gone. Right? A parent makes racist comments, they're banned from the rink. They're banned from any function, period. A coach does it, he's gone. He or she is out. Make a point. Take a stand, draw a line in the sand, and hold to your values that you keep talking about but doing nothing with. This is the biggest concern that I have when it comes down to racism in hockey, is everybody says that they're all against it and they want to see all these kids be included and everybody should have the same shake. But when it comes down to put your money where your mouth is, these people are nowhere to be found. My father set an example when he took on those kids that I still live to today. And all of those kids that were on that team that year, still to this day, if they see my dad out and about in town, they still walk up to him and say, "Mr. Arsenault, how are you doing today?" They respect him for giving them that opportunity because nobody else would. Everybody else just basically just waited till somebody took this on. My dad stepped up, took it on himself because he didn't see the difference. And he wanted to give these kids a chance. And he did. And like I said, to this day, these kids still respect him. I say kids, they're the same age as me. So, guys, this is something I am very passionate about. Racism, sexism, bullying, all this stuff has no place in minor hockey. None. And here's the scary part about the whole thing. If we allow it to happen, if we step back and stay silent and don't address these things, that's what we're teaching the kids. They learn from our example. They learn from how we act and react to certain situations. If there's a fan standing up in the stands, screaming racist comments, and I, as a coach, don't grab the ref and say, "I want this guy out," then guess what? I have just told all 17 of the players on that bench that what this guy is doing is totally acceptable. If I pick a team and I pass over a player that's Indigenous, and even though he's better than other players, I'm telling all these players that he's not going to cut it just because he's Indigenous. And then you wonder why these kids get pissed off. You wonder why they get angry. God, I played Metro League with kids that could skate circles around AAA players, and they weren't on the team because they were Indigenous. That's the only reason they weren't there. Their parents could pay the rep fees. That wasn't the problem. The problem was they lived in the wrong area of town, and they were Indigenous. That was it. And nobody on this planet is going to convince me otherwise, because I watched it happen time and time again, year after year, until the kids just dropped out of hockey. And then everybody else turns up, well, I guess they couldn't hack it. Couldn't hack it. They never had a chance. What happened was something that was orchestrated from the start. Keep ignoring them, keep pushing them down, and eventually they'll go away. Does this sound familiar to anybody? We've done it for the longest period of time, not just in hockey in general. So I know this is a hot button topic, and I don't have the solutions. But the longest journey starts with a single step. If every coach in every organization across this country made a choice today that they weren't going to allow racist prejudices to affect their coaching, and they would be truly willing to include all kids and give every kid a fair shake, that would be a start. That in and of itself is a massive undertaking. That would take years to ever happen. And that is only a start to the whole thing. I look to players like Ethan Bear, and I hope he has a long and great career, because the message that he's sending to Indigenous kids out there across the country is important. So no pressure, Ethan, but don't screw this up, man. I'm rooting for you, and I really want to see you succeed, because I want you to show all of those kids that it is possible, and that maybe, just maybe, all the coaches out there might get their heads on straight, and the organizations might start doing things properly and give these kids a fair chance. But remember, our kids learn what is right and what is wrong by what we do and what we don't do, by what we say and when we remain silent. These things are important. So please, I am begging anybody that watches this video, please, before you open your mouth, even if it's a joke, before you open your mouth, think of the impact of your words. Think of how what you are about to say or not say, what you're about to do or not do, is going to impact that kid or an entire bench worth of kids, and set the tone for them for the years to come. Are you going to teach them that every kid deserves a fair shot at hockey and to fair competition? Or are you going to teach them that there is a section of people that don't deserve to be here simply because they weren't born with the right color skin? It's a challenge. I throw it out to everybody. If you're going to coach a team, coach a team. Teach kids, develop them, train them. Teach them the right things. If you teach them to be racist and to put down kids that are not like them, you're not a coach. You're the worst kind of person. Anyways, guys, obviously this is a very heated discussion, and I'm certain I will get some kickback for this one. Regardless, it needs to be said, and I don't feel that people are saying it enough. The conversation has to happen if we ever want to invoke change. It's been a year since that statement was sent out by Hockey Canada, and I've never heard it spoken in a single organization in my area. This is a problem. And it's not just going to go away. We need to work actively to find a solution. And more important, we need to actively listen to the people that are being affected by it. Every kid deserves a fair shake. Every kid deserves a fair chance. We have the ability to make a difference. And if you choose not to, and that's what it is, it's a choice. Don't fool yourself that it's just the way it's always been, therefore it always will be that way. No, it's a choice. Don't delude yourself. Make the choice to include everybody. Give everybody a fair chance, regardless. Anyways, as I said, I'm sure I'm going to get some flack for this one, so you might as well like and subscribe while we still have an opportunity. Anyways, I'll be back next week. Hopefully it'll be a little bit of a softer topic. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But thank you guys for joining in on this one. I'll be back next week. And remember, practice like you play.